Alright, second update on Memorial Day. This is where we transplanted the blackberries. They were over there crowded in with the thornless. We'll be over there in a second. And I transplanted one here. Well, it's one big clump. The other one here. And this one here. So far, this one is the only one that has sprouts so far. Which I hope that just means that these ones are spending a little more time doing the roots, but I'm thinking they didn't make the transplant. Sometimes that happens. You cut the stalks when you transplant the blackberries 12 to 18 inches. I went 18 inches just in case. Oh no, we got some new foliage right there. Let it zoom in or focus in. Yep. If you can't see it right there, that little nodule. So cool. That's coming back. Let's do a double check on this. Let's see if we can see anything. This stalk is the only one that looks like it's still living. I don't see no shoots off of it, but that's okay. These blackberries, they spread quick. And then we transplanted this bush. It's a flowering bush. I can't remember the name of it. It gets these little tiny flowers on it. Let's see if we can super focus. Focus in there. It's not, I don't want to. Sure it doesn't. Let's get in there. So that's what it looks like. And the lighting kind of throws it off, but they're pink petals. And they have the red pedestals inside. And that it gets a bunch of those flowers on it. And these bushes get ginormous. They can get up to, I've seen them 16, maybe 20 feet tall in a well-fertilized, well-watered area. This came from a friend of mine's. They were moving their bush they lived on the golf course. And they were moving the bush from one section to another. And this happened to be a root that I had from it, and that they came back from a root. So we're hoping this guy or gal, whichever it chooses to be, grows up to be a good bush. I'm not sure if this is a bush that requires a different one to pollinate back and forth, or it just pollinates on its own. Holly bushes have recovered and doing well. And then we'll come right over here. This is where we got the daylilies here, but this is where we have, you can see the old stalks from last year. We plant sunflowers in here and we let them drop their seeds and leave it wild. Tons of birds love it. They come in here and you see the live forever down in there. This fence has got to get redone. This is just a temporary fence in because somebody down the block, their kids had bunnies for 4-H, and they thought it was a good idea just to let the bunnies free. And so now the bunnies are running everywhere and populating. So we had to put some fencing up for them and the deer. And this is our thornless blackberry. As you can see, there is no thorns on it. This is a hybrid. Both of this and those are domestic blackberries. They're not the wild. So, and as you can see, they have some foliage coming on. They don't come out right away. This one is eventually going to get moved because between the fence and the rock wall here for the back of the barn, it's just too congested for these, and they don't get enough space, enough airflow. When they get moisture, there's not enough airflow and a lot of the berries will mold. That's why I transplanted the thorned blackberries over there so that they wouldn't be crowding on these. When I initially planted them, they were two small plants. They fit within those cages. As you see, it's well outgrown its cage. So we're going to leave these here this year. We're going to let them berry out and see how they do. And then come fall or spring, depending if conditions are right, we will cut these stalks down and then transplant this. Now, with these thornless, you can take these runners, and basically what you're doing is when they're living runners, so you can take the end of the runner, place it into a pot with potting soil in it, keep it watered, it will start roots out, and you can grow a second plant. And then what you do is you come up here somewhere, wherever you choose to, and you cut it off, and then that will be a separate plant. And you can start additional plants this way with the thornless. The thornless are very touchy and very fragile. These stalks will break very easy, so you have to be careful with them, especially as they get older. These ones right here broke off from the snow weight. They were big ones just like these others, and because of the snow weight coming down right here, it crushed them. So you have to be very careful. So this will get transplanted also, and it's going to get transplanted over there by where we were putting in blueberries and all that, and this will have a nice area. There is another blackberry, the thorn type, coming up from the roots when I because I right there is where I dug out the thorned one. Now there's wild ones and then there's domesticated ones. This looks to be like a domesticated one. There was a wild one over here, but this one, I believe, we'll find out, was from the domestic. We'll find out. We'll let this little guy grow, and if it turns out, because you can tell the difference because of the stalks. The stalks and the berries. This probably won't put out berries, but we can leave it here. It ain't going to hurt anything. This other thornless I got from when I used to have my painting business going. There was a customer, good friend. He gave me a potted section of his thornless blackberry. So this is one type, and the one I have over there is a different type of thornless blackberry. I'm not too sure. He wasn't sure on his type either because they were not labeled when he got them. And as you can see, this guy is way overgrown its area. So we are going to be moving this one. As you can see, it looks like, I think it rooted in right down. Let's get a better light. Nope, I was just stepping on this section right here. As you can see, it's overgrown its area. We want to move this. So we're going to move this soon and transplant it over there where we put the blueberries, because this hazelnut bush right here is just shadowing too much of this area, and it doesn't get enough sun. It doesn't get enough sun until right now. This is the time when it starts getting sun, especially when the hazelnut bush fully blooms out. Now, these are hazelnut bushes that we got from Arbor Day about 15-20 years ago, and we placed them in all over the property. Some harvests are worthwhile getting, but the birds like them so much that usually the birds get them before we can even harvest them, and I'm not going to argue. Here's a nice little hollyhock coming back on the hillside. We're promoting that. You can see the domestic strawberries we got coming in. We put these also on the hillside. They started up here, and then they decided they wanted to be on the hillside, so they kept dropping their runners down and growing on the hillside. I guess that's the best place they like to grow. There is rocks there to keep the moisture in for them, and there is quite a bit of them. I know the shadow is kind of, I apologize about that, but there's only one way I can come, and the sun faces. So okay, now the reason why we're moving the thornless and all that is because we have a grapevine. Let me get in here. A grapevine right here that's coming, and we planted this last year. So what we want to do is we're going to build a trellis here, and it's going to be trellis sitting area, so there'll be a benched in area. We had another place we used to live when I was growing up. We had one, and it was like a little pavilion trellis, so that the grapes grew up on the backside, provided cover from and privacy from the road, and gives you shade as you're sitting down, and the grapes you can pick from underneath, and you can see how big that is, so you can harvest the grapes easier. You can see how big this bush is. It's pretty big. It's about, I would say maybe at least 20 foot tall, at least. Okay, so coming back over here, you see this blueberry is doing good. You see all the flowers on it. Those are the flowers right there. And we come up over here, we're gonna check on our grill and make sure everything's going good. We are smoking this pork loin first. As you see, it's coming along nice. I like to smoke them for a couple hours, slow smoke, so there's not much heat here. And as you can see, it's already kind of browning up and sort of cooking the meat because there is some heat in here. But that's why I don't have that much in there. Let's make sure we got the lid on there. And I like to smoke those for a couple hours, slow smoking. That way you're not drying out your meat and it comes out nice and flavorful. Now let's come over here and I'll show you where we're going to be putting in the blackberries, the thornless. So right here are going to be the other spots for the blueberries going in. So we're leaving those open. So what we're going to have to do is come over here and we're going to clean up all this area here. We're going to dig out the small trees that are coming up from roots and from little seedling stuff. And we're going to clean up this whole area, pull it out of here. And we might just pull all this stuff, put it right here, do a little burn, put some ashes into the soil, which is good for the plants. Bring in some other soil, mix it all in. And we're going to plant one of the thornless here. And then we're going to plant another one up there, so that it has plenty of area to grow and it's not crowding anything else. Because remember, we're going to have the raspberries right up and over here. So all these will be raspberries. So we don't want to crowd anything. That's why we're moving things so they get plenty of room to grow. So we'll have to prep up this area and then possibly this area down here. That log pile we're going to leave right there next to that stump. We're going to let that's basswood. It will rot very quickly. So within a year or two time, that'll all be rotted down and it'll provide nutrients to the soil as it's doing so. So we will plant right up here because this is another basswood stump. And as long as you keep them trimmed down, you won't have any sprouts coming back up and overcrowding your stuff. Dig this area out, plant the other blackberries here. And then we have 4 black raspberry plants down there that you can't see. We'll take a little walk-see down there. We have about 4 of those that we need to move because when we initially purchased and planted them, here's the currant bush that we'll need to transplant come after they produce and after we harvest the currants off of this. We're going to transplant this so it's not crowded by the trees. That is going up over here. Backtrack a little bit. Where that log is, it's going to go right there. So it'll be right up against the road, the pathway there. And then they'll have plenty of room and it won't overcrowd the blueberries either. And then it won't overshadow them right away either. Coming back down here, this is all the black raspberries. Now, not to be confused with blackberries. These are actual raspberries, but they're black raspberries. So there's a plant here. It shot a stalk over here. We'll have to dig these out, and you can see them all in there. We'll have to dig that spot out. We'll have to dig these ones out too. And then there's, in between there, on the other side of the fence, there's a couple, same for there. There's another plant there. So it's like 1, 2, 3, and a little one right over there, 4, there's 5. And these all need to be transplanted and placed up there as well. And we're going to put them with the raspberries because it's fine. They don't get that large. They're just like the raspberries, so they'll fit in just fine. Here's our other plot of potatoes. Now I have to get in here and weed again. As you can see, all the weeds that's come up. Now, right there, barely see it. That's a row, that's a row, that's a row. There's many rows in here. And what I did was this is all crescent potatoes. I had like a whole box full of crescents that I needed to use up that they had sprouted. And so I planted them all. And then there may be a few stray purples and reds thrown in here that I may have planted right up in here or down along the bottom there. But this is all. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of crescents that go from that fence to that fence. So, and they're spaced about a foot apart. So there's probably easily 100 crescent potato plants in here. And one might think they would be crowded, but they're not, because they only grow in a small little area. They don't really spread out too much. So they pretty much grow right around where where the seed potato was planted. They pretty much grow right there. So you won't find them a foot out. I've dug them out enough to know this. They're not the large potatoes, which sometimes do the same thing. So, and here, let's get a little shot of this, on one of our apple tree flowers. And then this year, the apple trees did not blossom as much as they did the past 2 years. So, and I know that apple trees have seasons. One year they'll produce, one year they might not. So that might be why we don't get as many blooms on them. These two little guys did not really do too well, but they're doing better now that we took the trees down behind them. Because when we originally planted these in, the other trees behind were not that big. It's amazing what 5-10 years time will do for you. And when we put these fruit trees in, we don't buy the biggest fruit trees there are that cost hundreds of dollars. We go for the simple ones that you find at all the greenhouses, and they're the small ones you find in the pot. We'll let them grow up because we want them to adapt to the area that we're planting them in. We don't want them to be established in a good soil somewhere else and then have to transplant them and have them on struggling to do so, because where we're located, it's a very sandy soil. It's a Kalkaska soil. So if you know what that is, it's a very poor soil. Great for growing potatoes and such because it's a well-drained soil. But so last year we cut down all of these trees, and we have those ones right there. We're going to leave that big maple. We got to cut down all those trees right there, coming all the way over. Where is it? That guy right there, there's a couple of big maples back in there we're gonna leave, and that'll provide shade for some of the chickens over there. But the rest of these we're gonna thin out, including these big basswoods right here, because they rot and break off, and they're not good to have around. So we'll take and thin all these trees out here, allow more light to come in for the orchard, and we'll still have enough trees to provide the sunshine for the chickens, so that in the hottest part of the day, the sun's usually straight over top and going over, so they start getting relief right away. Because we do have a lot of chickens. It varies from year to year how many chickens we have and how many we need. They're a hybrid mix that we've made over the last 20 years, and they're a mix between good egg layers and good meat birds, so that we don't have to have separate meat and separate egg. They're just hybridized all into the same. And with the breeds that we used, Aracanas, Wyandottes, all that, they're very cold orientated chickens. They have smaller combs, and so they don't get frostbite as easy. And the new batch that my mom introduced some years ago they're fancy. I can't remember the name of them. They got like feathers on their feet, and that just helps keep them that much more protected from the frosts and the extreme cold, because it can get 30 to 50 below here in some winters. So you can see we got everything mowed so that this clover, the clover here, can start flowering up and provide for the pollinators. The honeybees love this clover. There's several different types of clover. There's white, red, and there's one other. It's like a purplish color. So, and that is our update. Let's see. Besides the garlic, we got to hit the garlic. So this is where we've been digging out the transplanting the herbs from. We already dug out a huge section, you can barely see it, of the thyme. The thyme has been, oh, yep, I need to get out of the sunlight, better view for you. Right there is the thyme, this stuff right here. So we need to dig this whole section out right here, thin it out from the grass and the weeds, and then we need to transplant it. It actually goes over here too, and transplant it up there where it's going to do better in boxes and it won't be crowded over by the grass. We had some lemon thyme, but the grass choked it out. So that's one reason why we're trying to move everything so it can grow a lot better. Here's the other sage plant we need to move. It's a big guy right here. We got to, again, weed it out. And here's the other garlic chives. We're going to leave this batch here for now because we still want to be able to harvest this year. And when you move them, you can't you shouldn't harvest them. You should let them establish themselves. So we're going to leave this guy here, and come fall or spring, depending on the conditions, if it's not a good fall, then we'll have to wait till spring, because you always want to wait till you get a lot of moisture or they're going to die off. And then we still have, let's get out of the sunshine again for you. We got all the chives here, as you can see. And you can see it's being overgrown by the grass. So we want to pull these out. There's 6, 7, 8 clumps going along this line here. We're going to pull all these out and transplant them up so they're doing better. And as you can see, this looks like a bunch of grass here, but it actually isn't, because we're going to come right over here carefully. And as you can see, there's one stalk of asparagus. Now we usually come through and harvest all the asparagus when it pops up. Then I'll come through, cut the grass down, and then it allows you to see the asparagus better. Now you could take all the grass out and do rows of asparagus, but it's really not needed. I mean, the asparagus only comes up for a short time, and then that's it. Now, I try to keep the soils as covered as possible, because you lose nutrients if your soils are exposed. Sometimes you can't help that, and you have to. Here's a remnant of some of the strawberries that were planted down here. And sometimes you can't help that, like this. Like, you don't want the grass to be in there with the garlics. You got to have it exposed. Now you got to keep it watered. If you don't keep it watered, the sun and the wind and everything erode away your nutrients, and your plants don't do very well. So, but in this instance with the asparagus, we leave the grass on. It provides cover for everything, and we'll even let the dandelions and everything grow, because like I said, those are for pollinators. And then the chickens eat it also, so we're not worried about that. They can go and grow as much as they want everywhere. And sometimes we let them grow in the gardens too, depending on the garden and depending on the plants. So let's come over here, and the rhubarb's doing amazing. I have to harvest that. Over here, the garlic is doing great. Look at them. Look at those guys right there. Oh yeah. Look at them. Beautiful garlic. And now, again, I have all my smaller baby seeds of garlic that I started down here. Now I'm going to take all these seeds and I'm going to thin them out. And when we get the herbs down on it there, I'm going to dig all that grass, all that stuff out of there. And then I'm going to put the seedlings in rows up there, because they'll need to stay in ground for at least a year or two to grow big enough to really manage them properly. These were seeds from the top. So garlic, they send these little flower bulbs up, and you're supposed to nip them off. If you don't, you can use them and eat them, but you can also harvest them for seeds if you let them go for long. Sometimes I do that when I'm trying to propagate more garlic, so I don't have to buy it. And so as you see here, there's just tons. Like, all this over here is garlic. It's not the grass. Now, you can tell because this is the straw and this is the hay, the hay right here. And that's this big clump. Now, I left that because I harvest the hay to use in my chicken coops and the nest boxes in the floor. And I have tons of it growing here on the farm. And I leave it growing in patches too, because I'll come by hand with a sickle and I'll harvest it right off. So I already seen one over here, so I'm gonna show you how it's done. So the rhubarb, they get these flower heads on them. So if you don't want seeds, which we don't, because these things spread at the base on themselves, you want to pull these off. So you want to come into here. Let's see if I can get down in here. Now this guy right here is where the flower head's coming off. You want to come as far down here as possible. You just want to yank it right out. And that's what you want to do. You want to yank it right off. And that's how you harvest the rhubarb. That's how you're supposed to harvest it. So when you go to pull a leaf off of there, one came with it. So it's usually the leaves and the stalks that are on these flowers, they're not as good tasting. So because this plot's fallow right now, and we're letting it go so it can build its nutrients up. You can see I put some chicken manure there and some pile chicken manure there. We'll just throw that right in there and we'll use it there. Now, you do the same thing if you're harvesting these. So if you're harvesting them, you grab it right here and you just yank right up. And that's how you're supposed to harvest rhubarb. You do not want to cut it, you want to yank it out. Here's another flower head right here. So we'll get down in here. And that kind of snapped on me, but I tried pulling it as quickly as possible. And they will do that. If your rhubarb isn't doing as well, it'll have hollow stalks. You don't want that. So you want to make sure they get water and you want to make sure they get food. Keep the flower heads off of them while you're getting ready to produce. Rhubarb is very essential to most farmers and it has been for centuries. It's edible. You don't want, your pets shouldn't have rhubarb at all. Rhubarb is not good for dogs or cats or any of your animals. I don't feed them to my chickens either. You can make and use the stalks, chop them up, mix them with some sugar, and let them sit for a whole year, and you can make some nice country wine out of the rhubarb. There's another stalk in here that I'm gonna pull out. As you can see, another leaf came with it, and that's fine. We'll throw it over there to compost in there, and later on, this will all be overgrown with weeds, and I'll dig it out and spread the rest of that hay and compost from the chicken coops over it to help kill off some of them weeds. Now, as I was saying about the rhubarb, you can make desserts out of it. There's a variety of different desserts. Mom is getting ready to do some harvesting herself. She's going to select certain stalks that she wants, and she's going to make rhubarb upside down cake, which is really good. Don't sound good, but it gives you that sour sweet kind of nice dessert. So you can see our walking onions right here are coming in quite well. The walking onions, you can pretty much cut them right down here at the stalk. They will grow back. You take these and you can foil pack them, mix them with your favorite dressing like vinaigrette or Italian dressing, put them in a foil pack or whatever, cook them up on the barbecue, and they make excellent sides, just like that. And these will come back from you cutting the stalks. You don't dig the whole thing out. And then at a certain point, they get big bulbs on the top, which is why they're called walking onions. They'll fall over, and then it plants the bulbs. And just like this, right here, what you did, it'll grow up more, which is fine. You can never have enough onions. Now, you can dig up and use the bulb too, but with the walking onions, it's just preferred that you take the top. Okay, let's back up. We'll check on the meats, and then oh yeah, look at that nice coloration. See, still barely any. We just want enough to smoke it in there. Excellent. All right, as again, happy Memorial Day. Thank you to all the vets out there. And we'll check back in. Hope you guys are having a great Memorial Day.